Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Barrera, and I'll be moderating this webinar entitled Employee Engagement Technology. I also have with me Yash Chitre, who is a founding member of HubEngage and will be helping me co-facilitate and help me monitor the session today. So if you have any questions or like to post any content, please use the chat bar to communicate with us. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody will be on mute. This is a recorded session. And one of the things that we ask is we may ask for a little participation throughout the webinar. We may do so in the chat. Please monitor that and post any information through the chat area. This course will be receiving certifications or certificates, excuse me, for your certifications. And so there is a form that we will be posting in the chat box at the end of the webinar that will allow us to capture your information so that we can build your certificate so that you can use that to enter into your appropriate CE portal. So HubEngage, want to thank HubEngage for sponsoring this webinar today. You will be receiving, for attending this webinar, one SHRM PDC and one HRCI PDC. And so if you maintain both certifications like I do, we'll be sending you 2 certifications to input that CE into your portal. So please look from that, look for those certificates by Monday. From us to be able to get your credit for these particular courses. If you have any questions on recertification, please look at the SHRM website at shrm.org or HRCI, or you can actually reach out to me as well too, Chris at HubEngage.com, and I'll be glad to answer any recertification questions on your credit hours. All right, what are we going to be covering today? We're going to be covering why employee engagement. We're going to be looking at some current trends in employee engagement statistics. We'll be discussing at length technology's role in employee engagement. We'll be talking about different types of employee engagement technology. We'll also discuss employee engagement and gamification and what that means. What does it mean for our employees when we see the term gamification. And then lastly, ways to deploy technology for employee engagement. Now, the team here at HubEngage is always searching for relevant topics that are current events or things that interest our listeners. Information that has some value back that you can take for your teams and help you in the performance of your roles. We've had most recent topics like the future of remote work, employee vaccinations, and you can find those. We do have these recorded. Unable to get CE credit for them, but if you wanted to listen to the content, you can find those at hubengage.com resources to listen for those additional webinars. Now, employee engagement technology is certainly a hot topic for organizations today. And of course, that's our topic. So I'm going to take a flashback to January 2020. I know we all get tired of talking about COVID-19. I do as well. But if you hear me out for just a little bit, I make my point about what's transpired over the last year and a half. And I think COVID-19 will probably be in our immediate terminology, at least for the time to be. And I wanted to start with an example. I started ordering online several years ago and pretty comfortable with that, ordering products and services. But many US consumers until early January, early 2020 may not have done that. And so we had to use new ways of purchasing things, and we use technology, right? Grocery stores were able to kind of reinvent themselves. They were able to enhance their technology, change to online ordering, pickup and delivery. We saw the same thing with the restaurant industry, huge changes in how they were interacting. Dining rooms were closed, so they were using that technology to allow people to order online, pick up and deliver. And then of course we saw, giants like Grubhub and DoorDash, getting huge adoption on this consumer food order technology because it was easy and it was available and allowed them to be able to get what they needed. And then lastly, we saw some of that take place in our entertainment, right? Netflix and others. Now, all of these technologies also had something in common. They were tracking analytics. They were tracking data rather, and they were using analytics and business intelligence to tell us what we're going to buy, how we're going to buy it, when we're going to buy it, and maybe even order it in advance. So technology certainly has played a role in what we see transpired as a result of COVID-19. And I guess the big question is here, should we expect the same experience for our employees? Should the employee experience be the same? Well, I can tell you that looking at research and looking at surveys, that employees are in fact expecting that same type of experience. They're looking for those leaps in technology, and they want to really see their employers make a change and engage with them in a more advanced technological way. All right, so why employee engagement? I think before we talk about the technology, we should spend a little bit of time talking about employee engagement. And we're going to use our friends over at Gallup. They do annual research, sometimes several times a year, on employee engagement. And according to Gallup, they're saying that engaged teams have an increased productivity by 18% over teams who are not engaged. They see an average increase of profitability by 23%. They see employee retention at 43%, almost half of non-engaged teams, and they increase customer loyalty by 10%. Now, there's an old saying we have in business, take care of your employees and they'll take care of your clients. I think that's certainly true with organizations who are engaging with their employees and finding more positive ways to share that feedback, to share those rewards, and to disseminate information. Hence, employee engagement. So why employee engagement? COVID-19 has certainly made it important for us to interact with our employees, whether that be because they're remote or whether they are struggling with the safety and risk and the uncertainty of COVID-19. Right now, employee quit rates are at all-time high. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that those rates are 2.7% as of mid this year, almost 3%, and the highest quit rates recorded since they've been recording this type of information. And so no doubt with all the uncertainty about safety and risk about COVID-19, maybe asking people to return to the workplace, that's something that employees have found is a big dissatisfier because of the safety and risk and uncertainty of COVID-19. The continued state and status of remote work, they kind of go hand in hand with returning to the workplace. I know that many companies, as a result of what we're seeing right now with the COVID Delta variant, that have started to delay those returns to come back to the office to maybe the first part of next year. So a lot of uncertainty driving that dissatisfaction or that uncertainty, which tells us that we really should have a pulse on employee engagement, and we address a lot of the concerns that employees have out in the workplace. And then the last one is vaccine mandates and verifications. I just saw today in the news where there are big businesses that are terminating employees for not taking the vaccine. We found out through last month's webinar, that there are a lot of opinions and a lot of emotion around how that's managed. And I think as we start to see our first vaccine get FDA approval here, I think talking about into this month, that you'll see those things start to ramp up a little bit more. And again, another reason to really make sure that all of these things that are affecting our employees in the workplace, that we have them part of our employee engagement strategy. So a little bit on current trends and employee engagement statistics. According to Gallup, 36% of U.S. employees are engaged at work, compared to 20% globally. The percentage of actively disengaged employees is slightly up in the U.S. from 14% in 2020 to 15% through June of 2021. And then the ratio of engaged to actively disengaged workers in the U.S. is 2.4 to 1, down slightly from 2020, where the ratio was 2.6 to 1. So 2.5 to 1 of our employees are actively disengaged, or at least telling you that they're actively disengaged. And then this last slide just kind of shows the trends over the years here. I think even though 2020 was a hard year for many organizations, and we saw a lot of variability, we saw probably the most variability we've seen in prior years through some of the events, with COVID-19 and some others. But overall, pretty healthy. We're at 36%, as I mentioned earlier, actively engaged, 14% disengaged, which means that 47% of employees are just showing up. So while we've made great strides, and a lot of us are implementing good programs and addressing employee engagement, we still obviously have a lot of opportunity for that remaining 47%. Okay, this is information from Gallup. All right, so some things that I think are important for us to consider in 2021. I made a mention of a few of them already, but employees say that they want more feedback. And I think that overall, just based on the activities of COVID-19, remote workforces, we've done a better job at trying to stay more informed with our employees, giving them more feedback. And whether that's been using collaboration tools, using some of the technology that we're going to be talking about here in a minute, employees are expecting more feedback, and they expect that to continue for the remainder of the year. Engagement among hybrid employees has improved. Well, hybrid employees weren't the norm. They used to be kind of the outlier. Now they're more of the norm. We've learned how to interact with them. We've learned how to stay in touch with them. We've learned how to give them feedback. And so that's improved that experience for those employees that are away from the office. And we've learned that that really needs to be across all employees who are working remotely. Something else that 2021 taught us for employee engagement is that we need flexible work programs. A lot of businesses have implemented flexible work schedules, been a little bit more lenient on a start and end time. They varied those hours, especially for those employees that are still coming into the office to stagger work. And so that flexible work has really been a value add to employees, and they got a good taste of it, and they expect to see more of that as time continues. Work-life balance. I don't think that could be more important for anybody that's exclusively working from home. And so paying attention to that work-life balance, having clear policies about when you start and when you end, no emailing after hours, those type of activities. So really watching that and making sure that that's part of your employee engagement strategy. Emotional connection. Employees want to be connected. And I think as we talk about some of the technologies for employee engagement, having that social aspect or being able to interact with their fellow employees or peers, aside from the fact that they're not in the same building, is going to be extremely important as we continue down this road of employee engagement and using technology to be able to interact with our employees that may or may not be in the office. Manager engagement is too low. So despite that we are given more feedback, there's still some disconnect from how managers are giving feedback. And so we'll talk a little bit more here about some of the tools we'll use and how we can encourage managers to be able to continue to give more feedback. And then lastly, trends for employee engagement in 2021 is that we're seeing more employee reward programs come out. Not only providing visual recognition of those accomplishments, but also tying those with things like gift cards, point system. We'll talk a little bit more about that. That's definitely going to be one of the top topics for employee engagement in 2021. All right. So types of employee engagement technology. So one of the things that we see out there today is that there are numerous tools that are being used to be able to entice that employee to stay connected with the organization. Now, each organization is going to be unique, and they're going to have different priorities. But I did want to talk about some of the main types of technology that's out there. The first one is messaging, and that's the ability to distribute information, and whether that's via email campaigns or being able to send messages through the mobile device, readily providing that information, not necessarily in a chat, but more like a mass distribution. Okay, so messaging. Those are tools that employers are looking for in order to complete the use of that employee engagement technology. We're seeing use of communication portals, whether that be access to their own intranet, the company's intranet, or even creating a special intranet to be able to tie those employees to that information. People are using maybe portals to be able to log in and access information securely. We're seeing blogs. And so using that technology to be able to communicate with our employees more in a general sense through some of the tools that are listed here. We did briefly talk about rewards in the previous slide, recognition and rewards. So not only providing that visual representation of when that reward was earned and what they earned, but actually giving them access to maybe a point system that they can use for different achievements, being able to distribute gift cards and other types of incentives. And probably what's most important about this type of technology is that we're making it immediately available to the employee. We know that through research, the rewards should be as immediate as possible. So by using the technology to distribute these recognition and rewards will allow the employee to recognize them quicker. Training, access to training information. So whether that is a link to an LMS or that's access to videos and other types of information, people are using, employers are using training and making that available in their their technology for employees. Social platforms, and this is probably the one that's most common and one that we hope has the most traction. We want to get them away from Facebook. We want to get them away from Twitter. But more importantly, we want to give them access to enterprise content that's secure, right? That's private, that's only for the corporate enterprise. Still give them access to search and look for data, allow them to post videos and photos, and even give them access to public and private channels. And so that social media network type of application that allows us to communicate with those employees. Crowdsourcing. This is the ability to use polls, distribute surveys, maybe participate in forums. And then we talked about blogs previously in communication, but being able to make information available to everyone, and more importantly, gathering that feedback from the employee. So again, making sure that is in an application or a tool that allows them to do that. Content and knowledge bases, things like wikis and documentation. Many of those applications have search engines, so they can search for certain types of content. And so, content and knowledge bases are, big tools that organizations are using as part of their employee engagement technology strategy. Now, let's not forget employee self-service. There are reasons to still give access in one place to everything the employee needs. So while we're giving them that, that social connectivity, that communication, those collaboration tools, also having access to, to things like, pay, benefits, those type of things through employee self-service. Instant messaging. So this is different from the communication we talked about. This is actually the ability to communicate peer-to-peer, maybe even through a group chat or department chat. You can also use instant messaging to share documents, share information directly with the user. Again, this would be, corporate enterprise, safe and secure, and allow your employees to freely disseminate information through their corporate infrastructure. And then the last things that we're seeing in employee engagement technology or tools that we're seeing are collaboration tools. These are, establishing communities to be able to talk with one another. We're seeing things like team rooms. There are a number of applications out there today that, allow these conference calls or these collaboration through these team rooms, and of course, web conferencing. Now, every organization, again, is going to be a little bit different in what their priority is. There are some vendors out there today that have multiple instances of this type of technology embedded in their platforms. And so, each organization is going to have to select the type of services that they're needing in their organization, that definitely benefit the employee, but more importantly, benefit the organization and those strategies. All right, so how is that technology deployed? I think most days everything is cloud-based. It's going to be accessed through the web securely. It's going to have some form of mobile interface. So mobile app is going to be important, even though workers are interacting through a desktop or a laptop and accessing information through the web. Having that mobile interface is really going to be key to being able to connect with those employees away from the office, or a little more easily than they would maybe on a desktop app. We did talk about intranet, so being able to take advantage of that technology and attaching it to the employee engagement technology, so still having access to company information. The use of digital displays, and this is signage or things like leaderboards in either offices or hallways, either showing employee recognition and accomplishments, maybe showing team accomplishments, safety information. And so digital displays is another way to disseminate that information to employees. And then lastly, email campaigns or emailing technology. So being able to push data regularly to the employees and keeping them up to date on events and current affairs for a particular organization. So these are the types of employee engagement technology that are available. All right, so let's talk a little bit about technology's roles in employee engagement. And this is according to a recent survey. 95% of IT executives said that they have increased listening to employees since the pandemic. So people are listening. People want to know what employees have to say, and of course, they're going to have the tools to be able to collect that data. 65% of IT executives say 25% of their company's workforce will continue to telecommute. And so even though we've heard a lot of things out of the news about employees being asked to come back to work, being forced to come back into the office, there's still a big element of that workforce that will continue to stay remote. So very important to continue to stay involved in how we're going to deploy that technology, right? Not only to keep employees working and productive, but also to keep them engaged. 76% of respondents said they relied on employee feedback to gain actionable insights when considering new software or services. And so, again, very high numbers that employee feedback is key, and it's going to continue to be a key in our technologies for employee engagement. All right, so what is technology's roles in employee engagement? I think employees are expecting that we mimic a great customer experience. Many like the tools we talked about in the very beginning of the webinar, that we're looking for that great consumer experience. Employees are looking for that at the workplace. As a matter of fact, they're judging their employers based on the technology that they're using, either to be productive or to interact with them. Employees today are just digital consumers, and again, they expect that same type of tools in the workplace. HR is no longer just transactional data. So while we can use traditional HR tools to help with employee engagement, it's more than that, right? We're going to need to be able, our traditional HR systems may, but most likely we're going to have to use technology that's outside of our HR system to be able to round that employee engagement strategy. And then employees expect easy access to information, easy access to data. They want to be able to collaborate, and they want to have easy access to communications. So that is technology's role in employee engagement. All right, so let's talk a little bit about gamification. Employee gamification is the use of game-like elements such as points, scoring, rewards, and competitive platforms to boost employee engagement. According to a recent survey, 87% of US workers report that workplace gamification would make them more productive. And so that's that social aspect, right, of being able to get into an app and perform, whether it be learning or other types of activities, providing a little more stimulus around how they're accessing that data. 80% of US workers find gamification-based learning more engaging than traditional training. So being able to, access that learning on their own, be able to see the results, be able to get recognition for it. 80% of workers find that that's more engaging than traditional training. And then it's said that gamification increases employee engagement by 60% and productivity by 50%. So it's no surprise that we'll continue to see these type of elements that will be displayed in our technology for employee engagement, and it is something that employees are expecting to see. So types of gamification techniques, social media type applications, much like Facebook and Twitter, having that social aspect. Interactive leaderboards like digital displays and information that's displays on an internet homepage. The ability to redeem and access instant rewards and recognition. Badging and achievements. This is where employees can earn credentials or achievements based on completing certain elements, and whether that be a training or that be certain skill sets, that they can display those badges and achievements, and that other people can see that that they have those credentials. Tracking milestones, and whether that's individual milestones or benchmarking or for groups, being able to visualize that. And then I did talk lastly about goal tracking for employees. So these are all examples of gamification techniques to incorporate in employee engagement technology. All right, so let's talk about ways to deploy technology for employee engagement. These use of digital platforms can include surveys and forms to be able to capture information, rewards and recognition, learning, communications, instant messaging, and social feeds. And all of these have been discussed in previous slides. These are just some of the tools that you could deploy as part of your strategy. So what should you be looking for in a vendor? Select a vendor that's best of breed. We did talk about your traditional HR system may not be the system to house all of these applications or the way to deploy them. And so you're going to want to select a vendor that, one, has the functionality and services that you need, and that each organization is going to select that based on your needs. Select a vendor who implements end to end. It's not okay just to select a tool and have a tool to be able to have employees access information. You want to select a vendor who's really going to help you with that implementation, who has maybe predetermined surveys, predetermined forms, who's already kind of done the work, so that you can focus your time on implementation, communication, and execution, and use the tools that the vendor selected to be able to guarantee a good implementation. Select a vendor who's considered enterprise privacy and security as part of their application. Remember that we're trying to get away from platforms like Facebook and Twitter. We want something that's secure for our organization, and we want to use corporate enterprise privacy and security. So make sure that you have a vendor who's thought through that, has included that in the total application. Integration with your existing HR system. We've already talked about the traditional HR system that may not be the system that you need in order to execute these strategies, but you still want to be able to share information, and you still want to be able to pull information. So make sure that you select the vendor that has the ability to integrate with existing systems, but more importantly, being able to access that data, right? And whether they're providing their own artificial intelligence tools or BI tools, like reporting and analytics, or they're allowing you to use your business tools by extracting data between both systems. You want to make sure that all of that data you can use to help make future decisions based on the type of information that you're collecting. And then lastly, cloud-based with mobile applications. Being able to easily deploy these applications through cloud-based technology, and making sure that mobile applications for employees are available so that information is easy to access. Yash, do you have any comments or recommendations that's for available on our website?
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody that's interested in, implementing any kind of employee engagement platform technology that Chris talked about today, we have lots of information specifically about not just the types of features that you can push out, things like surveys and top-down communications and bottom-up communications, but also different channels, right? So Chris touched on, mobile, internet, digital signage, email campaigns. These all play a role. So we've got lots more information available on our website at HubEngage.com.
Yeah. So there was a question that, there has been some, there's been some use of technology, but it's been in response to COVID-19. And, I think that's totally okay. COVID-19 taught us one thing, and it taught us to be responsive, right? It taught us to react. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad thing. But, as you kind of move into the future, What are some of the other tools that we talked about today that you can use as part of that strategy? And you don't have to start big. I mentioned lots of different types of technology, from portals to surveys and forms. But maybe you start small. Maybe you just start with the ability to provide a mobile app and provide information at their fingertips. And I mentioned in other webinars, employees have concern for their safety. So making COVID information available, making vaccine information available, what the procedures and processes are for returning to work, those type of things. If you can make that information readily available on these applications and start there, then you can kind of start to build on that and start to add some more of these modules that will bring benefit, but maybe start small. And then lastly, I mentioned picking a vendor. Yash talked about some of the strategies that we have, but you should be looking at a vendor that can provide examples, can provide tools that are ready to go out of the box as well. That'll help you get started and get implemented and really get more success around those strategies as you implement. Well, thank you. I'm so honored today that you spent a little bit of time with me to kind of go over our ideas. Our goal is to to try to educate you, provide you with some continuing education for your recertifications, and of course also share best practice and some of the tools. So please reach out to us after the fact as well too. If we can provide a copy of the presentation, any resources or links, we're happy to be your partner, and we look forward to talking to you the next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.